Why Willa has two hearts.
The hybridization that occurred in certain genetic lineages led to a more efficient system of storing oxygen in the body for the purpose of accessing higher frequency domains and information. The oxygenation of the body is of paramount importance in speeding up the vibrational resonance of the physical form and having the idea of not exactly two hearts, but more chambers in the heart than you have that makes it function as if it's doubled, allows for a more efficient distribution of oxygen throughout the system, and also a greater amount of oxygen throughout the system that then increases the probability of raising the frequency to the exact pitch required for easier connection to higher frequency realms of consciousness and other dimensions of experience.
So just like when Daryl does deep breathing in order to make the connection with you, the idea is that she has a much higher level of oxygen in her system than we do?
Yes, and this is also why we have mentioned from time to time that there is more oxygen on our planet in the atmosphere. Not a lot, but enough that it allows for the stabilization of that frequency to be common.
Okay. Is there a way that you can support elementals in this time of planetary transition, since they seem to have an important role in keeping the Earth in balance?
Well, in a sense, the idea of taking on the role from your side of keeping the Earth in balance and doing the things that will help stabilize the environment in positive ways, increasing the idea of the natural world and making those connections from your side will be something that will also allow them more opportunity to do so from their side. So the whole idea of making the connection with them and taking actions in your reality that are more representative of enhancing the environment, stabilizing the environment in a more natural way, is what you can do from your side while they do what they do from their side. It's not entirely up to them. This has to be a relationship. It has to be, in a sense, a 50-50 proposition.
It just occurred to me that the connection that elementals experience with Earth and nature is a profoundly deep love affair, in a sense.
Yes.
And that the more that you love Earth and you love all the elements of Earth, the more you are putting yourself in a state that's similar to what an elemental might experience.
Exactly, and therefore, like we have said with regard to extraterrestrial contact, you have to meet them halfway. You have to bring your vibrational frequency at least much closer to the level that they operate on in order for you to perceive them and in order for you to interact with them in the ways that will allow for the acceleration of the balance of the natural world of Earth.
Now, one person had an experience where they were with a grove of trees and suddenly shifted to a parallel reality where they realized that the forest is inhabited with tree people. In other words, the people of the forest are the trees, and that they are a community that has very strong bonds, and they're also very welcoming of the human consciousness.
That's why we say that the trees are, in a sense, the ambassadors between humans and the natural world, because they're connected to the idea of physical humans, they're connected to the idea of the elementals, and in a sense they act as the go-between. So they're always welcoming you into their reality to act as, well, for lack of a better term, brokers between the two different civilizations of human and elemental. That's the common bond. That's the common frequency. That's the common interface, are the trees.
So they experience each other as individual consciousnesses
And collective, both.
and a collective at the same time. And they have young people and old people, and it's just it's a community of being.
It is. But again, when you say young people and old people, we understand what you mean in terms of time and the growth of trees. Yeah. But don't assign a human perspective to that, because they don't see it exactly in that way. Remember that they can perceive things in parallel realities in multiple dimensions a little bit differently than you can. And the idea of young and old has a particular perspective to them, but it's not exactly the human perspective.
And yet you need the older trees in a forest in order to share their energy with the younger trees.
Yes, yes. But again, all we're simply saying is the terminology that you're using, the definitions that you're using, have a particular human bent to them that is not experienced exactly in the same way by the tree consciousness.
And one last thing about trees, that they seem to have a very generous spirit in general.
Yes.
And their genetics are actually more complex than ours.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So they are actually highly evolved beings in many respects.
Yes. In fact, the very idea that they are apparently to you immobile requires the extra genetics and the extra abilities, because they can't move away from things like humans can. Therefore, they have to have more adaptability to a variety of situations, hence a more complex genetic structure.
And they communicate with each other chemically, so they let each other know that there's danger or all kinds of communication.
Yes.
That happens.
Yes, yes.
So it's very sophisticated, and yet it's hidden to human consciousness unless you shift your vibration to be able to perceive what is actually happening.
Yes, but it's not hidden on purpose. It is simply the idea of the limitations that human consciousness has placed on itself, because long ago, when humans were much more connected in their understanding of their expression of nature, it wasn't hidden at all. It was understood very clearly.
So that would be Native Americans, Lemurians, those beings were much more...
Early Atlanteans, yes. And not leaving out the idea of people in other parts of your planet, because many of them also had a more natural way of relating to nature.
Yes, I think almost every continent had its share of shamanic beings that were connecting with nature.
Yes, yes, yes. And it was much more common in those societies to understand those things as natural.
Now, one person has a boa constrictor, and he wants to know how to communicate with that being, and if it's possible to create a relationship and an emotional connection between a reptilian being, and I'm talking about actual reptile, and human.
Well, of course it is. So again, many of the things we've already said will apply as well. The idea of the deep emotional bond, the idea of using imagery instead of words. The reptile will also assist you in understanding exactly how to frame those images, how to frame those emotions in its context, in its quote-unquote language.
So you're basically saying, be the snake, and then you will know how to talk to the snake.
In essence, yes, and the snake will help you if it really senses a deep willingness and a deep bond in your consciousness that wishes to do so. So again, this is why it's so important to have that deep, loving, vibrational, harmonic bond, because then the being will sense that you really desire a connection and will help you with that connection by sending the imagery and the feelings as well that will help you understand how to focus in on its particular way of creating a communication.
Okay, I think that's helpful. Let's see. I'm going to switch over to a question having to do with the precursors.
Yes.
And we wanted to give you an opportunity to clarify the idea of whether precursors were actually born here on the planet or whether they are actually
Yes.
extraterrestrial.
We understand that there may have been a slip in translation when we first talked about that concept. And this is why we have recently begun to talk about people born on the planet who have similar hybridized genetics to precursors as being preparers rather than calling themselves precursors. Precursor, by definition, is something that comes before something else. And therefore, since you're already on the planet, you can't be precursors because you're not coming to the planet, you're on the planet. But you can be preparers. And the preparers can exhibit some of the same vibrational frequencies as the precursors. But precursors are born off the planet. They are hybrids from off the planet, are not born on Earth. Who is born on Earth are preparers. We apologize for any confusion in translation.
Did you say your ship is called Nexus? Someone...
No, it's not called Nexus, but the idea is that it can use nexus points in order for its ability to shift location to location. In a sense, any ship that uses that technology can be called a Nexus-style ship.
And was the USFO that crashed at Roswell just as alive as that?
No. Different kind of technology altogether, a little bit more akin to your understanding of technology.
Do stories and fictional universes actually exist in their own right? And we are sort of seeing them and tapping into their energy when we read something or think about them?
They can. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily all experienced in the same kind of physical way that you experience your reality, but that doesn't mean that they're any less real. So when we say that they're all real in one way, shape, or form, you have to understand that that may include a multitude of dimensions, including the spirit realm. So they're not necessarily physical in the way that you know it, but they are real. You are tapping into a real reality on some level of consciousness. Now, again, some of them may be absolutely the way you imagine them, and some of them may be a little bit different. But somewhere along the line, all the attributes are real, whether they all belong in one reality or several.
Okay. One individual, when they were a child, they dreamed that they basically visited inner Earth. And they felt that they were being teased by adults about this idea.
Yes.
Is there an actual inner Earth culture or an inner Earth reality?
Yes, but it's not actually physically in your Earth. It's in another dimension. Many people may mistake the idea that it's inside your Earth physically because of how they may arrive there by going through different portals that sometimes can be underground or in caves or what have you. But without knowing it, they may have actually literally shifted into a different dimensional reality and still assume that they're on the Earth or in the Earth that they were originally on, which they're not until they go back through the portal and come back out onto their original reality, so to speak. But the idea is that there are other dimensions that are perceived as being inside physical objects such as a planet, but they're not literally there necessarily. They can be, but they're not literally there in your case. So people that find themselves in what they perceive to be inner Earth are actually in another dimension that they've shifted to without necessarily knowing it.
And can you tell us anything about what it's like there?
Well, there are many different kinds of places there. There isn't just one place that people go to. There are shells within shells within shells within shells of dimensions within dimensions within dimensions within dimensions. So it just depends on what frequency you entered the portal in as to where you wind up.
And also what's relevant to your life theme in terms of what information you receive
Yes.
about that environment?
Yes, so there isn't one place I can tell you about.
In fact, aren't most of these things sort of geared towards what will excite us on a deep level based on our own unique?
Well, generally speaking, or they're certainly geared toward the idea of the kind of information that you agreed to participate in the theme of exploration on Earth.
And that's why people have so many different kinds of experiences, because it's all uniquely tailored
Yes,
for their consciousness.
of course it is. How could it be otherwise?
Right? Yes, because you're doing it. This individual is very excited about Atlantis, and
Yes.
he wanted to know, or she, some hot spots to go to tap into Atlantean energy and give themselves the opportunity to receive information there.
Well, certainly the Bahamas, the areas you know as Cuba, the area you know as the Yucatan, and even across the sea, the area that you know as Crete. Some areas in Spain, some areas in the area you call North Africa and ancient Egypt do still have some Atlantean remnants to the ideas of survivors that went there. So any of those places can be energy centers that you can gravitate yourself to based on what you're attracted to do or experience, that can allow you, as a permission slip, more efficacy in tapping into Atlantean information.
And I know the Bimini Road, many people think that it's underwater.
Yes,
and you can actually swim along and look at the Bimini Road.
Yes, well, it wasn't originally a road, it's a collapsed wall.
Oh. Yeah, because it just looks like these huge concrete blocks.
Yes.
That stretch on for a long period of time, and you can swim along it.
Yes. Well, if you look on a map that shows you what that area looked like when the water level was lower during the Ice Age, the ocean level was lower, you will see what the actual outline of that main Atlantean island was. And you can see more clearly when the water is lower, where other locations also allowed for cities to be built. But again, remember, even though many people depict the concept of ancient Atlantis as looking sort of Grecian, the true architecture of Atlantis is more the idea of Mayan or Aztec.
And it's quite rural in the sense of the society itself, yes?
Well, in a sense, yes. There were some main city parts, but for the most part, yes, the cities were quite open. There was quite a lot of rural countryside that surrounded them and was utilized for farming and different purposes.
Will a time come where we'll actually be able to, in a sense, see, because our vibration is higher? Like, can you see Atlantis?
Yes.
From your vibrational level?
Absolutely. That's why we're telling you the architecture isn't what most people think.
That's so interesting. So we're capable of achieving that in our lifetime, yes?
Yes, of course.
Well, that's interesting. Okay, so this question has to do with interacting with different versions of a person. And does each version represent a different, distinct soul that you're looking at when you...
If you're talking about the idea of one single body, then no. Doesn't represent different souls. It represents different aspects of the same soul.
Okay. And then when people are a different version because they're in my reality that I prefer, does that different version depend on me, or is there something that they do? So does this mean that if I experience something that I view as negative, it's up to me to change my vibration, which will then give me a different version of that person?
That can happen, yes. But the idea is that you're taking some information from them in your telepathic contact, and you're rendering out of your own energy, out of your own consciousness, a reasonable facsimile, not only of what you're getting from them, but also what you're taking from your own belief systems and what you need to see. So yes, very often changing your frequency, coming from a different place, will allow you to, quote unquote, manufacture a different version of them, because you've shifted to another reality where there already is a different version of them, because now you're coming from a different place, a different frequency, a different reality.
Yeah, occasionally you will actually hear of somebody having a negative interaction with someone and then going into a meditative state, communicating with that person on a higher level in a sense, and balancing their own energy in relation to what was communicated to them, and then going back and reconnecting with the physical person and finding that their behavior has also changed.
Correct, but the truth is their behavior hasn't changed because the person they're dealing with is actually a different person.
Okay, so they're getting another version of that person.
Because they're in a different parallel version of Earth, yes.
It's very interesting because it really does shift the focus back to your own personal responsibility, but at the same time, you're not to blame for other people's negative behavior, or the fact that you see another person's negative behavior does not mean that's a one-on-one reflection of your own negativity.
Correct. The issues that other people may have that you attract into your life may have nothing to do with your issues, but there's a reason why they're there. It might be because you need to help them. It might be because you need to act as a sounding board in some way or a reflection to them for their issues, whether they know it or not. But generally speaking, though it can sometimes be a one-to-one reflection, it isn't always. You have to have the discernment to be able to tell what's actually going on and why that person has been attracted or at least allowed by you into your life.
Yes, and the idea is what you do with the transmission or the receipt of information from that person.
Absolutely.
It puts it back in your court that what you do with it will determine the effect that you get out of it.
Yes, because no matter how the situation originated, whether it was created from negativity, no matter what anyone else's experience or opinion is or perspective is of the situation, you still get to determine how the situation will affect you because you're the one affecting yourself with your relationship and definition of that particular situation. So you can always get a benefit no matter what happens, depending on what you choose to do in relation to that circumstance.
And when people die at the same time, like in a plane crash or something like that, do they have an awareness of the other people who are transitioning at the same time that they do?
Sometimes, not always. Again, it depends upon their vibrational path.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, like that a whole group of people would get on a plane and when it crashes, they're all transitioning simultaneously.
Yes. Well, it's not really, if you stop and think about it, any more mysterious than all the people getting on the plane because they happen to be going to the same city. It's just that they're going to a city they didn't necessarily realize they were going to.
Yeah. That's intense.
Well, again, it's no more mysterious than the kind of orchestration that happens when you get on any particular kind of a device. So again, the orchestration of getting a certain amount of people on a certain vehicle to go to a certain city is an orchestration. This is no different.
And it's also if the people may not be aware that they've chosen that, but at some level, they've taken the exit in a sense.
Yes.
For whatever their specific purpose was or reasoning was, or it was their time.
Whether they know it or not, they have bought a ticket to that particular destination in a coordinated orchestration with the others. Those that haven't, you will find, as you often hear, will find themselves not necessarily getting on that plane for one reason or another synchronistically.
Yeah, this certainly brings back memories of the 9/11 situation.
Yes. And again, none of this excuses the perpetration of these particular kinds of events, but people will take advantage of whatever they need to take advantage of for a variety of reasons. And remember that sometimes those reasons are a higher level of themselves may be willing to go out that way to help the people that remain behind realize how to make sure things like that aren't necessarily opportunities for people in the future ever again. Because there are many ways that you can leave physical reality. It does not have to be through the idea of disaster or terrorism or anything like that. You will find a way when it's your time to find a way. But the idea can be that certainly those kinds of ways don't need to be the ways if you feel that that is too disruptive to the psyche that allows you to find a peaceful situation in your reality.
So, is there anything we can do to consciously choose the way we die instead of it just randomly happening when the time is right?
Well, yes, of course there is. There are several ways. But the idea, of course, is you don't necessarily have to pay attention to that, or you don't really have to necessarily know about that. If there is purpose, then yes, you can know. A well-known story on your planet comes from an individual known as Cochise, who knew the exact time of his death and predicted it. But again, it's not always important that you know that. If there is purpose to it, you will know. But again, the only way it's most likely you will know, if you need to know, is by, guess what? Following the formula.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Because anything, any kind of information that is truly relevant for you to know about on your journey, on your path, will come to you when you follow the formula, because the formula leaves nothing relevant out.
For example, like with Steve Irwin, he was definitely following his passion when he was swimming with that stingray.
Yes.
And yet that turned out to be the way that he was going to exit the planet.
And many people will choose to do that while they're doing something they love to do. In a sense, they're, quote unquote, dying happy.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good way to approach it then. Do what excites you the most with integrity and following all the other elements of the formula. And if it is your time, that will, at least you will go out doing something you love doing.
Absolutely. If you want to put it in those pragmatic terms, that can work. Again, please do remember that when you do transition, you will understand exactly why you may have chosen that path, and it'll be perfectly fine.
And so, energetically and mechanically speaking, what does it mean to be grounded or ungrounded?
Well, again, in true alignment with yourself is grounding. Misalignment, being out of alignment with yourself, is ungrounding, for lack of a better term, to put it in the most simplistic way.
So, in a sense, when you follow a shamanic path, do you need to keep a foot in both worlds, so to speak?
As long as you find that it is not your time to transition, then automatically yes, because any shaman or anyone in balance acts like a link or a bridge between the physical and non-physical realities. So yes, you're automatically a bridge. Therefore, 1 foot in each realm is exactly what needs to happen.
And that's a skill unto itself.
Yes, it is. It's an art like any.
And can you elaborate on why Willa has 2 hearts?
The hybridization that occurred in certain genetic lineages led to a more efficient system of storing oxygen in the body for the purpose of accessing higher frequency domains and information. The oxygenation of the body is of paramount importance in speeding up the vibrational resonance of the physical form and having the idea of not exactly 2 hearts, but more chambers in the heart than you have that makes it function as if it's doubled, allows for a more efficient distribution of oxygen throughout the system, and also a greater amount of oxygen throughout the system, that then increases the probability of raising the frequency to the exact pitch required for easier connection to higher frequency realms of consciousness and other dimensions of experience.
So just like when Daryl does deep breathing in order to make the connection with you, the idea is that she has a much higher level of oxygen in her system than we do?
Yes, and this is also why we have mentioned from time to time that there is more oxygen on our planet in the atmosphere. Not a lot, but enough that it allows for the stabilization of that frequency to be common.
Okay. Um, is there a way that you can support elementals in this time of planetary transition, since they seem to have an important role in keeping the Earth in balance?
Well, in a sense, the idea of taking on the role from your side of keeping the earth in balance and doing the things that will help stabilize the environment in positive ways, increasing the idea of the natural world and making those connections from your side will be something that will also allow them more opportunity to do so from their side. So the whole idea of making the connection with them and taking actions in your reality that are more representative of enhancing the environment, stabilizing the environment in a more natural way, is what you can do from your side while they do what they do from their side. It's not entirely up to them. This has to be a relationship. It has to be, in a sense, a 50-50 proposition.
It just occurred to me that the connection that elementals experience with Earth and nature is a profoundly deep love affair, in a sense.
Yes.
And that the more that you love Earth and you love all the elements of Earth, the more you are putting yourself in a state that's similar to what an elemental might experience.
Exactly. And therefore, like we have said with regard to extraterrestrial contact, you have to meet them halfway. You have to bring your vibrational frequency at least much closer to the level that they operate on in order for you to perceive them and in order for you to interact with them in the ways that will allow for the acceleration of the balance of the natural world of Earth.
Now, one person had an experience where they were with a grove of trees and suddenly shifted to a parallel reality where they realized that the forest is inhabited with tree people. In other words, the people of the forest are the trees, and that they are a community that has very strong bonds, and they're also very welcoming of the human consciousness.
That's why we say that the trees are, in a sense, the ambassadors between humans and the natural world, because they're connected to the idea of physical humans, they're connected to the idea of the elementals, and in a sense they act as the go-between. So they're always welcoming you into their reality to act as, well, for lack of a better term, brokers between the two different civilizations of human and elemental. That's the common bond. That's the common frequency. That's the common interface, are the trees.
So they experience each other as individual consciousnesses.
And collective, both.
And a collective at the same time. And they have young people and old people, and it's just it's a community of being.
It is. But again, when you say young people and old people, we understand what you mean in terms of time and the growth of trees. Yeah. But don't assign a human perspective to that, because they don't see it exactly in that way. Remember that they can perceive things in parallel realities in multiple dimensions a little bit differently than you can. And the idea of young and old has a particular perspective to them, but it's not exactly the human perspective.
And yet you need the older trees in a forest in order to share their energy with the younger trees.
Yes, yes. But again, all we're simply saying is the terminology that you're using, the definitions that you're using, have a particular human bent to them that is not experienced exactly in the same way by the tree consciousness.
And one last thing about trees, that they seem to have a very generous spirit in general.
Yes.
And their genetics are actually more complex than ours.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So they are actually highly evolved beings in many respects.
Yes. In fact, the very idea that they are apparently to you immobile requires the extra genetics and the extra abilities, because they can't move away from things like humans can. Therefore, they have to have more adaptability to a variety of situations, hence a more complex genetic structure.
And they communicate with each other chemically, so they let each other know that there's a danger or all kinds of communication
Yes.
that happens.
Yes, yes.
So it's very sophisticated, and yet it's hidden to human consciousness unless you shift your vibration to be able to perceive what is actually happening.
Yes, but it's not hidden on purpose. It is simply the idea of the limitations that human consciousness has placed on itself, because long ago, when humans were much more connected in their understanding of their expression of nature, it wasn't hidden at all. It was understood very clearly.
So that would be Native Americans, Lemurians, those beings were much more
Early Atlanteans, yes. And not leaving out the idea of people in other parts of your planet, because many of them also had a more natural way of relating to nature.
Yes, I think almost every continent had its share of shamanic beings
Yes.
that were connecting with
Yes,
nature.
yes, yes. And it was much more common in those societies to understand those things as natural.
Now, one person has a boa constrictor and he wants to know how to communicate with that being and if it's possible to create a relationship and an emotional connection between a reptilian being, and I'm talking about actual reptile, and human.
Well, of course it is. So again, many of the things we've already said will apply as well. The idea of the deep emotional bond, the idea of using imagery instead of words. The reptile will also assist you in understanding exactly how to frame those images, how to frame those emotions in its context, in its quote unquote language.
So you're basically saying be the snake, and then you will know how to talk to the snake.
In essence, yes.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
We have so many great questions from our viewers.
All right.
Okay, and the first one has to do with the handout. What happens if we do a misstep on one of these steps? Like if we look into a conspiracy theory or get into some religious spiritual argument with someone. If we notice it, learn from how it feels and adjust, are we back on track, so to speak? Is there anything more we need to do if that happens?
No. If you learn from it, then if you go back into the instruction in the way it was delivered, then you are back on track. So learn a lesson, learn why you may have desire to engage in that way, and then get back into the vibrational state as encouraged by the step. And realize that it's not necessary to venture that way again. Unless you do, then again, learn from it, learn why you chose to go in that direction. This can be used, like a lot of other things, to determine what your belief systems are and why you choose to do what you do. So if you use it that way, then you are learning, you are growing. But again, the idea is to realize that there is no need to do it, and that following the instruction more precisely will be to your advantage in creating the vibrational frequency that will bring you into alignment with contact and the interstellar alliance, if that is what you prefer.
Okay. And in step one, you said not to engage in discussions about conspiracy theories in general. Given that the UFO cover-up has been considered as conspiracy theory, but is an actual conspiracy, would engaging in conversation about it be considered going against the rule of step one?
No, because it is beyond theory at this point. There are too many witnesses, too many sources, too many verifications from many different people. And therefore, it is out of the category of theory. So you can research, you can discuss, It has been suppressed and covered up. At this point, it is relatively obvious that there is enough research, enough validation from so many different sources of different types that you can consider it to be something that is real.
And does watching videos or stories about true or not true conspiracy theories and stories go against the interstellar experiment? What I mean is, I enjoy watching these forms of entertainment without being emotionally affected.
If it is research, if you can remain neutral in observing all of the input from those particular presentations, then it is research. But the idea is to allow yourself to pay attention to whether you are becoming caught up in it once again, if you ever were, and to remain neutral in the observation of those things so that you don't necessarily develop a strong opinion in one direction or another about what is true about them or not. If it is too challenging for you to not form an opinion, to not have strong perspectives on what it is you are watching, what it is you are absorbing, then again, it would be best for now to back off and remain neutral and maybe not absorb as much of the information. But if you can remain completely neutral, completely objective, and allow it all to simply be information for the purpose of research, then it is fine. But you have to pay attention honestly as to whether that's what you're doing or not.
Okay, and because you will be discussing in step 3 writing letters to specific individual officials around the globe regarding disclosure of UFO contact, and in doing so providing specific wording for us to use, I would appreciate if you could also give us instructions for non-native speakers of English. Is it okay to translate the wording you provided into our own native language and use it in whatever ways you may suggest? And is it okay to share what I have translated with the people of my own country who would also like to join the social experiment, so they can also send letters to specific individuals?
Yes, that is fine. However, one suggestion we would have would be, don't necessarily rely on your own translation unless you are a professional interpreter, a professional translator who is absolutely certain that your translation is accurate in terms of the intention and meaning behind the words that are delivered in English. So you can translate it into different languages, but for those who are not proficient at the translation, then we would suggest that you find someone who is and ask them if the translation, or ask them to translate it in a way that captures fully the exact meaning of the original language. So if you can do that, and you can know that it is accurately representative, then that is fine.
And also, one question that came up, some individuals may feel anxiety about being perceived as some sort of target or part of some conspiracy or something in their land. And what are some suggestions for dealing with anxiety about, in a sense, sticking out or making yourself, I guess you'd say, a target or something like that?
Well, this simply goes back to some of the original ideas we have discussed for many years. You have to examine your belief system and find out why you are perceiving this in a fear-based or negative way. If the idea is too challenging for you, then as we have said, it's up to you to decide not to be a part of the social experiment. As the word implies, it is a social experiment, which means it requires interaction with society. So if you find that too challenging and are unable to let go of any fear-based or negative beliefs you have surrounding your participation in this social experiment, then don't participate. Otherwise, get in touch with your belief systems as to why you believe that it would be a negative thing to move forward in this way, and learn to let them go. Learn to let those beliefs go. Learn to transform them into something more positive so that you can be coming from your self-empowerment, your indestructible core. But again, as always, it is up to you to decide whether this is something that you are capable of participating in or not.
And also the idea of, I guess, thousands of letters going out all over the planet. What do you anticipate would be the reaction from administrative levels of our planet to that kind of thing, onslaught happening?
One particular reaction would be that they understand that there is organization to these thoughts, that there is unification to these thoughts, that there is similarity beyond borders, beyond cultures. This is something that can awaken them to realize that this is an important issue to look at, an important issue to address. Beyond that, there is no insistence or expectation, but we know that that recognition will occur in many individuals when they see a massive amount of individuals, regardless of country, regardless of background, regardless of other belief systems, unified in the idea of requesting the release of this information.
Okay. And when you talk about the hybridization agenda by the Greys, it sounds like humanity agreed to it in some higher level, that the Earth becoming the sixth hybrid race is a part of that agenda, and this has already been decided. If humanity on a conscious level became aware of this as a fact, it would have been looked at as a silent, covert invasion and not something positive or beneficial. I suppose this is why it is being carried out in secret from the majority of the population. How would you explain this conundrum? Is the slow drip disclosure a part of making the general population accustomed to the idea? Would not carrying out this agenda result in humanity going the path of the negative timeline the Greys experienced?
No.
And without white lies, how would you explain it if you had an opportunity to have a transmission that the entire Earth could hear?
Again, the idea is that understanding your connection to your galactic family, awakening to your true potential, awakening to the agreements that you have made for the evolution of humanity, would do exactly the opposite of allowing you to go down the negative path that the Greys took. It would allow you more opportunity to choose the path that you prefer in a positive way. The idea of secrecy is, as you say, euphemistically, a kind of drip system that allows humanity to get used to the idea, but it is also what gives humanity the time to awaken and remember that they made this agreement, so that it doesn't feel forced, so that it doesn't feel like an invasion, as you say, so that you can take responsibility for the part you are playing in having made an agreement from a higher level to aid and assist in the evolution of humanity in this format, in this way. And it is the acceptance of this responsibility and the awakening to the memory of the choice that you made as a collective that would allow you to be able to choose a more positive path and not go down the path that the Greys took in their reality.
And so the idea of this being a timeline for humanity, it's just one timeline. So of course there will be those individuals who would not want to participate in this direction for humanity.
Yes, and they will have their own reality. They will move on and proceed as if this didn't happen. There are many versions of Earth and many different scenarios that you can navigate to that will fit what you prefer based on the belief system you hold to be true.
So someone who's highly focused on the earth and ecological issues and wanting the planet to become more and more beautiful and not with conflict, a peaceful, wonderful place, heaven on earth, so to speak. They can have that experience without becoming part of the hybridization timeline. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes, of course. Again, there is a kind of mass consensus in large part with humanity to have agreed to the idea of aligning with open contact and aligning with the idea of the hybridization program, aligning with the vibration of the interstellar alliance. Obviously, what we are suggesting in these steps are the steps that are necessary to align with that particular Earth reality for those who have chosen it. But yes, of course, there is always the availability of other versions of parallel realities, parallel versions of Earth, that don't necessarily include what it is that we are suggesting in these steps. And that is why we tell you it's up to you to decide to participate or not, so that you can feel it out for yourselves as to what kind of reality you have chosen to prefer, you have chosen to be a part of, what group you have chosen to navigate to different Earths with. However, the vast majority of individuals who are exploring the idea of the expansion of consciousness on your planet at this time, again, not that all of them have to have chosen this, but the vast majority, as we perceive it, of those who are exploring the expansion of consciousness have agreed to participate in this particular form of humanity's evolution. And those are the ones we are speaking to. And only those. All right, I'll say good day. We now deliver the Interstellar Alliance Social Experiment Step 3, where we introduce a specific action in the form of a communication to the officials on your planet having to do with the idea of the revelation of information connected to what you term UFOs, UAPs, and extraterrestrial activities, information, and knowledge. We have crafted a specific letter for you to send out. We have transmitted this through the channel with very specific wording. The wording of this letter should be given out verbatim, so it is up to you to copy it intact, adding nothing, subtracting nothing. It will serve a very specific purpose of timing for things that are to come up in your near future and build a momentum of energy that can lead toward the acceleration of the probability of open contact on your planet. But again, it is up to you to decide to participate in sending this letter out in the way that it is instructed to do so. But again, the degree to which you are willing to participate in this will determine the vibrational state that is conducive to the idea of open contact and being in alignment with the Interstellar Alliance. Again, completely in your hands as to what degree you participate in this. But there are specific reasons for the timing of this as instructed in the letter, and the way in which it is presented, how it is worded. There are things that it will connect to. There are chords, in a sense, that it will strike within different people in very specific ways. We have, to some degree, in a limited fashion, done a similar experiment with you before as a kind of beta test to see how many people would participate. And this leads us to the creation of this version of it now that we are actually in the Interstellar Alliance social experiment. And this takes the form of step 3 to increase your activity your physical activity, your engagement, your involvement in your world, specifically along these lines, specifically in this vibration, in this energy, to again gauge the degree of willingness that you have to present yourself in a certain way, to establish yourself within a certain frequency, within a certain vibration, and to state clearly from your particular perspective as an individual member of the Interstellar Alliance the things that are relevant and important for activities in the world, for directions to be taken, for actions to be taken on your part and the part of others that will allow more probability to bring about the idea of open contact and to accelerate the timing of such. And so, to this purpose, in the delivering of step 3, Nania, I will ask you to read the Interstellar Social Experiment step 3 out loud to share with all, and allow them to know that a download of this will be available for them to use in the way that it is instructed within what you are about to read. So please proceed.
Interstellar Alliance Social Experiment, Step 3. Send the following letter by email or regular mail to every government representative in Congress, Senate and House, and all party members, as well as to the presidents, premiers, scientific, military, and political leaders of every country on Earth every 3 months until they take action as requested. And the letter should say, Dear, and you name the person, despite military, scientific, and political statements to the contrary, we believe that UFOs or UAPs do not represent a threat of any kind to national or global security or humanity at large. There is overwhelming and well-researched evidence and thousands of eyewitness accounts that these objects have been present throughout Earth's history without detrimental effect on the day-to-day affairs of humanity. Without supporting or promoting any related conspiracy theories, we believe that certain organizations are withholding knowledge of this phenomenon out of an irrational fear and for self-serving reasons. It's time for the secrets to end and a program of transparent public education to begin in service to humanity. Therefore, we respectfully but strongly request that you, in your official capacity, immediately and publicly disclose and release, within 1 year from your receipt of this letter, any and all information in your possession, or that you are aware of being in another person's possession, regarding UFOs, UAPs, and any and all indications of extraterrestrial life, activities, and technologies, and that you publicly state your support for the complete release of all such information without limitation, editing, redaction, ridicule, or falsification. Please be aware the members of this social movement intend to vote for and elect only those leaders and representatives who publicly and actively support and promote such disclosure, and with our votes, replace all officials who do not. Thank you. And this is from the Interstellar Alliance Social Experiment Group.
Thank you, Nania. When this download is made available to you, again, You may copy it, send it out as requested every 3 months. And when enough people do this, and the officials continue to receive these letters over and over and over again, and you allow yourself to do your research with regard to who is willing to support this idea publicly, and to ensure and assure that your votes will change those representatives should they not follow the requests involved in this transmission, then we will see how on your planet the idea of public opinion, the idea of public preference, the idea of the ability of the public to, as you say, move the needle on a subject in a direction that you prefer, will take effect to whatever degree you participate, to whatever degree you understand that you are your governments, to whatever degree that you will stand up and declare for yourself the ideas that are connected to the larger galactic family to which you belong, and your passion at experiencing the vibration of contact, the vibration of the interstellar alliance, and the changes that you may make in shifting to versions of Earth that are more and more and more representative with each transmission you send out, to act as a navigational tool to move you in the direction of the version of Earth that will be more and more and more representative of open contact, so that you may experience an acceleration toward that end. So it is of critical importance for those willing to participate that you allow yourself to send it out. We understand again that some of these challenges may require action on your part. You may need to rearrange some schedules in order to send them out to all of the individuals that are suggested within the letter. But again, the degree to which you are willing to participate, the degree of fullness to which you participate will make a difference, and the degree to which a lot of those individuals will receive these transmissions will also let them know what the general population prefers and what the general population will support or not support in moving forward toward the end of open contact. So, every 3 months is sufficient, considering the volume of the letters that will be sent out again and again, the same letters over and over. You will eventually see an effect. And we will be watching, we will be gauging, we will be observing, again, as a barometer, to what degree the needle is moving toward open contact and away from fear and secrecy. So we thank you for your participation ahead of time. And in return for your willingness to participate in this social experiment and your willingness to take action on step 1, step 2, and step 3, for remember, you do not stop doing the original steps. You keep doing everything as best you can, and you add to it with every step that we deliver to you. So, in return for this, I ask you now, in what way may we continue to be of service to you? Please begin with your questions and your dialogue if you wish.
Hello, Bashar. Good day to you. I remember you stating in a previous transmission that once a person makes a change, it is a complete change, and that change includes the person's past, present, and future, and also that you never were that person. My question is, why is it that ourselves and those who are close to us remember the past of the former version, especially if it is something that may not be preferred? Thank you for your time.
because it is still something you're creating in the present that is relevant. That's why. You create the history over and over and over in the present as long as elements of it remain relevant to the theme that you're choosing to explore. So even though you're not the same person and you don't have the same history, you are recreating something similar every moment as long as it remains relevant to your theme.
Hello, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Thank you so much. I just had a couple of questions, and thank you for being willing to interact with me. I appreciate it.
It is our passion and our pleasure to do so.
I was wondering if my daughter and or I are hybrids, and you may or may not be willing to answer that question.
All humans are hybridized. There is no such thing as a human that is not. But you are not hybrids in the sense of the ones that live on spaceships. You are not hybrids in the sense of the ones that are created through the hybridization program. But many humans have had genetic alterations by having encounters in different layers of reality that hybridize you further. But the idea is that you are not the hybrids being created on the spaceships in the hybridization program, but you are part of the hybridization program that is going on Earth for the evolutional purpose of humanity.
Thank you. Do I have a specific gift or one that needs to be remembered or awakened in this lifetime?
Well, what are you passionate about doing?
I don't know. This seems to be a very...
All right. Remember that when we ask you what you're passionate about, it doesn't have to be a life-spanning career or a large-scale project. We assume right now that you are having this conversation with us because this was the most exciting choice you could make at this particular moment. Yes or no?
Yes.
Well, that's all you have to do. When this conversation is over, look at all the regular options available to you, the ordinary options, and just pick the one that has even just a little bit more attractiveness, more curiosity, more excitement, more passion in it than any other, even just by a little bit, and act on that first. Take it as far as you can till you can take it no further. When the excitement naturally wanes and you make sure you're not the one dampening the excitement, then you look for the next thing that contains more excitement than anything else and act on it next. And you just keep doing that. Then it will usually snowball into bigger and bigger opportunities to act on your excitement. And then you will be following the formula and being of service to humanity in that way. Does that make sense? Do you understand?
Yes. Thank you.
So it's not a big mystery. It's not difficult to do. Just do it a step at a time. Keep it simple. And it will build and bring you, through synchronicity, more opportunities to act on your excitement, possibly in bigger and bigger ways. Yes?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's how it works. So does that remove the mystery? Does that remove any confusion?
Yes.
All right. Is that something that you believe you can do?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sir. So formal.
Sorry, it's a habit.
All right, ma'am.
In this lifetime or in my dreams, I've interacted with several different types of beings, and I'm wondering why there are so many different forms. I feel like some people have just one that they focus in on, be they past souls or something like that. Am I meant to interact with a particular type, or am I just...
You all have many different guides and many different connections. Sometimes one will be predominant, but at other times others will take turns based on the reason why they're connecting to you, the reason why they're helping you, whatever your connection may be with them, and of course based on their skill set as well, because different guides have different skills, different reasons for assisting you. So it just depends on what's going on at any given moment in your life as to who you may attract to be of assistance to you, be it an extraterrestrial being, an extra dimensional being, a spirit guide, a member of your soul family, a parallel reality version of yourself that is aware of how to connect with you in this way. It can shift and change dynamically all the time. Some people will maintain a connection to maybe one specific version of a guide, but that doesn't mean it's always the case.
Thank you. And one of those was, maybe it sounds odd, maybe it doesn't, was a mechanical spider. It sounds very strange, but it was above my face while I was sleeping, and I awoke feeling it right above my face at two
Yeah.
different points in my life. And it was one entity thing that actually created a lot of fear in me because I was not expecting it to be there. And I didn't know if it felt real in the moment. But I
Yes.
realized you said that when we're sleeping, we're awake, and we're awake, we're sleeping, essentially. So I'm just wondering if you know the purpose of why it presented itself to me.
Well, it is a projection of consciousness that took the form that you say gave you an opportunity to experience fear within you. So it allowed you to practice transforming that fear.
Got it.
It gave you an opportunity to do so.
Because I find that now I don't have fear when I come across any of the different entities when I'm sleeping or astral projecting or whatever it is.
All right, well, there you go.
Curiosity.
Yes, well, it gave you an opportunity through a representation of what you would have a fear reaction for to exercise your ability to transform that fear and let it go.
Okay, well, that's simple enough. And those are all the questions that I had.
All right, well, we thank you for the co-creation of this interaction this day of your time. Our unconditional love to you. Aveo.
Thank you, Aveo.